What's up, ShieldBros? It is the ShieldBro for the History Armada, and I'm back with another history video. Today, on this August 2nd, we are talking about the Battle of Cannae, which occurred on August 2nd in 216 BCE. So, first off, let's premise what it was, right? We're going to talk about what it was, then we're going to talk about a little background, and then the outcome of this battle. It is quite an important battle for the history of Rome and Europe. So the Battle of Cannae was the decisive victory of the Carthaginian army over Roman forces at Cannae, southeast Italy, during the Second Punic War. Also, I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. The Second Punic War lasted from 218 to 202 BCE. The Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca, or simply known as Hannibal, who was already known for his unorthodox tactics against Rome, counted on the Romans relying on traditional tactics and formations, which had worked so well for them in the past, and used their very strengths to defeat them in this bloody battle. So in 216 BCE, Roman military tactics were still in their infancy. Although Rome had won many impressive victories during the First Punic War, they continued to rely on their old tactic of placing a numerically superior force in the field to overwhelm the enemy. The typical Roman formation was to position light infantry towards the front, masking the heavy infantry, and then coordinating light and heavy cavalry on the back wings. You will see a diagram later on in this video as we talk about it. This formation had worked well for Rome's earlier adversary, the Greek king Pyrrhus I, who, although victorious at the Battle of Esculum in 279 BCE, lost so many men that his army could not continue on to take the city, which gave rise to the phrase a Pyrrhic victory. Comes from that king's name. So their tactics had worked for the Romans during the First Punic War, but at this Battle of Cannae, the Romans would learn an important lesson in military strategy from a general who fought like no other that they had seen so far, and would leave a lasting legacy for Rome and the wider world. Everyone that is a history buff knows the name Hannibal, and especially knows this battle. So let's talk about the background of the First Punic War so that we can get a scope of what was going on. The city of Carthage in North Africa was the superior power of the Mediterranean, and Rome, a small European trade city on the river Tiber, when the two came into conflict over Sicily, parts of which were controlled by both in 264 BCE. The resulting First Punic War toppled Carthage and elevated Rome as the new power in the region. Carthage was burdened with a heavy war indemnity, and their general Hannibal Barca, who had led the army against Rome, went to Spain in order to raise funds for the Carthaginian-controlled silver mines there in order to help pay for this debt. Hamilcar's actual intentions, however, were to regroup, re-equip, and resume the war with Rome. And he brought his son, Hannibal, and later on his younger son, Hasdrubal. And that was to help subdue the Iberian tribes and control the silver mines. When Hamilcar went into battle and was killed in 228 BCE, command of the Carthaginian forces went to his son-in-law, Hasdrubal the Fair, who chose diplomacy over military action in dealing with the Romans. But in 226 BCE, the Ebro Treaty was signed between Carthage and Rome, agreeing on boundaries in Spain between Carthaginian and Roman territories. Both nations agreed they would remain in their own regions and leave each other at peace. Hasdrubal the Fair, however, was assassinated in 221 BCE, and command therefore was passed to Hannibal, who had sworn to his father he would never make peace with Rome. So this was very important, right? Because we have this man who was a natural on the battlefield and who was up and coming in the ranks of Carthaginian society that had sworn an oath to his father never to make peace, and also had an oath of revenge against Rome for his father's death. So that brings us to Hannibal's aggression and Rome's response. So here in this map, you can see the background of the two empires, right, or the empire and the republic at this time. So down south in Sicily, you can see Syracuse, which was a Greek city-state of sorts, a colony. You can see the Carthaginian Empire in that purplish gray color, and then Rome in red there. and you can see their holdings in Sicily. So Hannibal started the Second Punic War when he attacked the city of Saguntum, a Roman ally in southern Spain in 218 BCE, placing it under siege and taking it for Carthage. The Romans, citing the Ebro Treaty, demanded Hannibal be arrested and turned over to them, and when Carthage refused, Rome declared war. Here you can see the city, what remains of the city in modern day. So instead of waiting for Romans to send forces to Spain, Hannibal, pictured left, decided to take the battle to them on their own ground and marched his army over the Alps. This was unheard of. This was preposterous to the Romans that they would cross the Alps into Italy. Leaving Hasdrubal in command of the forces in Spain, Hannibal proceeded over the Alps with his full army, and, once descended onto the Italian plains, he began advancing through Roman territory, taking small cities, villages, and defeating Roman forces twice, at Tribia, at the Ticino River in 218, and again at Lake Trasimene in 217 BCE. By 217, Hannibal had held all of northern Italy, and the Roman Senate feared that he would march upon Rome from the north. So therefore the Romans began to panic. They had this enemy on their doorsteps. They had this quote-unquote barbarian on the gates, at the gates of Rome itself, the sacred city. So fearing that too little was being done by the, at the time, consul Quintus Fabius Maximus, who had been dictator in this time of crisis, Fabius decided on a policy of harassing Hannibal and trying to thwart his plans through strategic movements and brief skirmishes rather than full-on engagement, which earned him the nickname Concator, which means delayer. The Romans wanted direct action and discernible results by Fabius, and he understood he was dealing with a clever opponent who could be expected to challenge any tactician's expectations. He chose to try to save Roman lives by penning Hannibal up while scorching the earth to deprive the Carthaginians of any supplies and adding further to the war of attrition. The Roman Senate, however, was not interested in this approach. They were not interested in a war of attrition or outlasting him. Instead, in 216 BCE, the younger consul, Municius Rufus, was elected to command with Fabius. Municius called for direct confrontation with the invading Carthaginian army, and Fabius gave him command of half the Roman forces and told him, do your best. He was like, whatever, fine, you want to do this? Get in there. Have these half of men. Municius was swiftly defeated by Hannibal, who used tactics that the Roman command could not understand until it was too late for young Municius, surprising him in an ambush near the town of Gerone, and Municius' forces were scattered, and he had to be rescued by Fabius. So after this defeat of Municius, Fabius resigned as dictator, and Rome scrambled to mobilize another force to take the field. So that leads us to this full-on confrontation, correct? So, the new command would be taken by the two consuls, Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Caius Terentius Varro, who replaced Fabius. Both favored abandoning his delay tactics and meeting Hannibal head-on. So with these two in command, Paulus and Varro led a force of over 80,000 against Hannibal's roughly less than 50,000 at Cannae. So it was too late for them to withdraw by the time that they realized how close they had drawn to him after several skirmishes, and so encamped his troops approximately 1 mile or 2 kilometers away from Hannibal's army in Cannae. So that leads us to the Battle of Cannae. The opposing forces faced each other for 2 days, during which time Hannibal sent small raiding parties, skirmishers of sorts, to harass the Romans as best he could. On the day of the battle, Hannibal disguised his intentions by placing his light infantry of Gauls at the front to mask his heavier infantry, whom he positioned in a crescent formation, as you can see on the left there. Or, right there, sorry. And at a given signal, using signalers such as flags and trumpets, Hannibal's light and heavy cavalry was positioned at the extreme wings as pictured of the positions. Hannibal had spent the past 2 days observing the Roman legions and positioned his forces to exploit all potential weakness of his adversaries. The Romans, following their usual understanding of battle in which superior forces would overwhelm by sheer strength of force, arrayed their forces in the traditional battle formations. Because Hannibal had been in position first, his location dictated the Roman deployment and field of battle. They had to fight on Hannibal's terms. The Roman army, therefore, was curtailed on their right flank by the Ophidius River and a hill to their rear, leaving the area to their left flank as the only avenue of retreat should the battle go against them and the lines collapse or roll up. Varro was confident of victory, however, and formed his lines so it appeared his forces only matched or were even less than Hannibal's, while massing his infantry at the center of the front line. As pictured on the left, you can see the feigning and screening that he used. When the Roman legions began their march towards the Carthaginian lines, the Carthaginian infantry fell back before them. The Romans took this as a positive sign, thinking they did not want to engage because of the outnumbered that the Romans held above them, and they saw this as them winning, and they pressed forward. The Carthaginian light infantry, who had earlier fallen back, now took up position on either end of the crescent-formed heavy infantry, and at the same time the Carthaginian cavalry charged the Roman cavalry. So not only do the Roman lines suddenly have heavy infantry appearing before them with a backing line of light infantry and skirmishers, but their cavalry have been caught off guard and full charge. This is pictured on the left with the destruction of the Roman army. So, this would normally have served quite well for them. Those soldiers massed behind the front line and further towards the back of the ranks merely served to push those onward, correct, for the Roman infantry. This would normally have served to break the enemy's lines at the center, but Hannibal had carefully withdrew his center line towards the wings so that the Romans continued to advance. They were drawing thin in the center. At the same time, he had the heavy cavalry driving the Roman cavalry back, which opened a breach in the lines of the rear infantry. As the cavalry forces engaged and the Roman infantry continued its advance onward in the center, Hannibal signaled for the trap to close. He had that crescent fully prepared for them. The light infantry was formed and the ends of the crescent, so that the Carthaginian line now moved up to form an alleyway in which the Roman forces now found themselves trapped within. The Carthaginian cavalry then fell upon the Roman infantry from behind in this alleyway that they had created with the wall of men, and the light infantry attacked the flanks of the Romans in this alleyway, and the heavy engaged full frontal assault. So because of this, the Romans were fully surrounded by Hannibal Barca's infantry, cavalry, and skirmishers. They had found themselves surrounded, almost completely being annihilated. Out of the over 50,000 who had took the field, 44,000 were killed, and those who survived, by fleeing through the area of the left flank, managed to escape to Canusium. Hannibal lost a mere 6,000 men, mostly the Gauls, who had made up that front line. According to the historian Durant, it was a supreme example of generalship never bettered in history. It ended the days of Roman reliance upon infantry and set the lines of military tactics for 2,000 years to come. Just as the Romans had earlier learned from their adversary Pyrrhus, so they would now try to learn from Hannibal, but before the lesson could be eternalized and utilized, they would have to deal with the almost overwhelming grief of the destruction of this force. A complete destruction of the Roman army at a newfangled tactic by a upstart general from Carthage. So in conclusion, Hannibal's victory at Cannae completely demoralized Rome and threw the city into a full-blown panic. So many men had been killed that there was no family which had not lost one or more of their own or a close friend. Mourning rites continued through the days while the Romans tried to understand what had caused such a great defeat, and finally resorted to human sacrifice in an effort to appease their gods. Fabius, who had formerly been the object of ridicule for his tactics, was now hailed as a hero, while Varro was villainized as a fool who had lost the army, and had been kind of criticized for having quote-unquote rash behavior, even though he had done merely what the Roman people and the Senate had wanted and engaged with Hannibal. he decreed that the mourning rites should be conducted within the home, thus bringing order to public life. Fabius kind of took control, trying to restore some semblance of order within Rome. Afterwards, a public ceremony purifying Rome of its complicity in the deaths of Cannae further relieved the people's guilt and allowed them to begin to move on. So, therefore, revenge was paramount in the minds of Rome. However, this sentiment came to be embodied in the figure of Scipio Africanus, who lived 236 to 183 BCE. He volunteered to lead Rome to victory. Scipio, who had lost his father Publius Cornelius Scipio in 211, and his uncle Gnaeus Cornelius Scipio at the Battle of Uperbatius in Spain, fighting against Hannibal's brother Hasdrubal. So he had quite the personal interest as well as professional when engaging with Hannibal. Scipio would go on to defeat Hannibal Barca in Spain, driving him over the Alps towards Hannibal in Italy, who by this time was engaged by the proconsul Gaius Claudius Nero. Nero defeated Hannibal at the Third Battle of Nola in 214 BCE, but could not win any decisive engagements. He defeated Hasdrubal, however, killing him at the Battle of Materius in 207 BCE, and Scipio then drew Hannibal from Italy by threatening Carthage itself. At the Battle of Zama in North Africa in 202 BCE, Scipio would use Hannibal's own tactics against him from Cannae to defeat him and win the Second Punic War. So Rome ultimately would make a comeback from this ultimate defeat and utilize what they learned to defeat the man who had defeated them. Hannibal's victory, however, would haunt the Romans for centuries onwards, and mothers would often chastise their children within Roman society, threatening that Hannibal would come for them if they did not behave. He was elevated to such a status in the minds of the Romans. Whether domestically or militarily, or just culturally, Hannibal's ghost would honestly, metaphorically of course, influence the culture of Rome, and also literally with how they would conduct themselves militarily. He would make a lasting effect upon the Romans and military history in general, especially because of the Battle of Cannae and how this changed military tactics for good. So, my Shield Brothers, I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you learned a little something about Hannibal Barca and his Battle of Cannae against the Romans. It is the anniversary being August 2nd, so with that, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments, suggestions, concerns, please do so in the comment section. I know I probably mispronounced some of these Carthaginian and Roman names. Please do not maul me for that. But if you like this content, go ahead and leave me a like. If you don't, leave me a dislike. But I hope to make more videos soon. And as always, I'm the Shield Brother, ShieldBro6, for the History Armada. And I'll catch y'all next time. Thanks for watching.